My husband said he'd leave me once he got promoted. She's just a stepping stone, he texted his friend. I read it quietly, smiled, then called his boss. He looked confused when he got fired. Until he saw who signed the letter. I never wanted to be the one to tell you this, Mike said across the diner booth, sliding a folder toward me. His hands were shaking. But you deserve to know what your husband's been doing. I'd driven 2 towns over to meet David's coworker in secret, terrified I was about to hear details about an affair. Instead, Mike showed me bank statements proving David had stolen my mother's entire inheritance. $47,000 I'd trusted him to manage while he chased his promotion. Before we continue, I want to thank you for being here to share these stories of strength and survival. If you believe trust should never be taken for granted, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps us reach others who need this. Now let's see how this unfolds. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that Mike had known for 8 months. He'd been documenting everything, not to expose David, but to protect me when the truth finally came out. Because the man I'd been married to for 18 years had been sabotaging his coworkers, falsifying factory reports, and building an exit strategy funded entirely by my dead mother's life savings. And I'd been too busy working extra shifts to notice. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how I ended up in that diner booth staring at evidence of my husband's betrayal, you need to know what my life looked like before everything shattered. You need to understand the woman I was just 2 weeks ago, the woman who still believed in the life we'd built together. It was a Tuesday morning, ordinary in every way. I stood in our small kitchen packing David's lunch like I'd done for 18 years. Turkey sandwich with mustard, no mayo. Apple slices in the plastic container with the cracked lid I kept meaning to replace. The thermos filled with coffee so strong it could strip paint, exactly the way he liked it. My hands moved through the routine without conscious thought. Muscle memory built from thousands of identical mornings. The house around us was modest but paid off. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, sitting 3 blocks from the factory where David had worked since we were newlyweds. We'd bought it with a VA loan and his grandfather's blessing back in 2006, when we thought we were starting something permanent. The mortgage had taken 15 years to pay off, and I remembered the day we made that final payment, how we'd celebrated with cheap champagne and talked about all the things we'd finally be able to afford. That was 3 years ago. We never did get around to those things. I smoothed down my nursing scrubs, the fabric worn soft from countless washes, and caught my reflection in the microwave door. 52 years old, gray roots showing through the drugstore dye job I could never quite keep up with, eyes permanently tired from years of double shifts. The framed photo on the refrigerator showed a different version of us. Our wedding day, both of us impossibly young and hopeful. David in his rented tux and me in the dress my mother had altered by hand, taking in the waist and hemming the bottom because we couldn't afford to buy one that fit. 23 and 25, convinced that love and hard work could build anything. Looking at that photo now, I wonder if that girl would recognize the woman I'd become. David came up behind me, kissed my forehead without really looking at me, and grabbed the lunch bag from the counter. "Another late night," he said, checking his watch like he was already running behind. "The promotion review committee is meeting this week. Got to make sure everything's perfect." I squeezed his hand, felt the calluses from years of factory work, the rough skin that never quite healed no matter how much lotion I bought him. "I'm proud of how hard you're working," I told him. And I meant it. That's the thing I'd remember later when everything fell apart. I genuinely meant it. "We're almost there," he said, using the same phrase he'd been repeating for 3 years like a mantra. "Once I get that supervisor position, things will be different. Better hours, better pay. You won't have to work yourself to death at that nursing home." The door closed behind him. His truck started in the driveway, the engine making that grinding sound it had been making for 6 months that we couldn't afford to fix. I stood in the kitchen for another moment, looking at the calendar on the wall with my shift schedule written in blue ink and his factory overtime marked in red. Our lives color-coded and organized, every sacrifice planned and purposeful. I believed we were building something together. That's what I told myself as I grabbed my own lunch bag. Leftover pasta in a container, an apple, a granola bar I'd probably eat in the break room at 2 a.m. when the exhaustion got so bad I needed something to keep me upright. That every early morning and late night, every extra shift and skipped vacation, every compromise and swallowed complaint was strengthening the foundation of our life. The drive to Maple Grove Nursing Home took 20 minutes through Millbrook's quiet streets. Our town was small enough that everyone knew everyone, the kind of place where your business became public knowledge before you'd even finished living it. The factory employed half the town directly or indirectly, and the nursing home where I worked took care of their parents when they got too old to manage alone. My days had blurred into a rhythm that felt both exhausting and purposeful. 12-hour shifts, sometimes longer when someone called in sick. I tended to residents who remembered my face but forgot their own children's names, who called me by their sister's name or their daughter's name or sometimes just sweetheart, because names had become too slippery to hold on to. Mrs. Chin gripped my hand during her morning bath, her fingers surprisingly strong for someone so frail. "You have kind eyes," she told me in broken English, the same thing she told me yesterday and the day before. "My daughter, she has eyes like yours." I'd met her daughter once, 3 months ago during the admission process. She hadn't been back since. Mr. Rodriguez asked me to read his wife's letters from 1952, the ones she'd sent him during the Korean War. His hands shook too badly to hold the yellowed paper himself, and his eyes weren't good enough to make out her faded handwriting anymore. I read about a young woman waiting in Texas, writing about the garden she was planting and the baby she was carrying and how she counted the days until he'd come home safe. "She's gone now," he told me when I finished, like I didn't already know. 10 years. But I still miss her every day. I found meaning in these small moments of human connection. In being needed by people whose families had placed them here and visited less with each passing year. The work was brutal in ways that didn't show on the outside. Lifting patients who couldn't support their own weight, managing medications for residents who fought you every step of the way because they didn't understand why strangers were trying to give them pills. Soothing fears at 3 in the morning when someone woke up convinced they were lost or abandoned or dying. My back ached constantly. My feet throbbed even through the expensive cushioned shoes I'd bought on sale at the outlet mall. But it felt purposeful, like I was doing something that mattered in a world that often felt meaningless. I came home to an empty house most nights. David's truck was never in the driveway before 11 p.m. anymore, sometimes not until past midnight. I'd heat up whatever leftovers I could find, eat standing at the counter because sitting down felt like admitting I was eating alone again, and fall asleep on the couch with the TV playing to fill the silence. When David finally came home, he'd find me there, half-conscious and still in my scrubs because I'd been too tired to change. "You should go to bed," he'd say, and his voice always sounded genuine, tired like mine. "You work too hard." I wanted to say that I was waiting up for him, that I missed him, that it had been 3 weeks since we'd had a real conversation that wasn't about bills or his promotion or who needed to pick up milk from the store. Instead, I'd mentioned that I felt lonely sometimes, that the house felt too quiet, and he'd sit on the edge of the couch and take my hand. "I know," he'd say, squeezing my fingers. "But the promotion will change everything. We're almost there. Just a little longer." I swallowed my complaints because I wanted to be supportive. Because his promotion had become the North Star we were both navigating toward. The distant point that would justify all these empty nights and lonely dinners and conversations that never went deeper than the surface. Just a little longer. That's what I kept telling myself. 3 years ago, when my mother passed away after a short battle with pancreatic cancer, she left me a small inheritance. $47,000 from the sale of her house and a lifetime of careful saving. She'd grown up during the Depression, and that mindset never left her. Clipping coupons, reusing aluminum foil, buying day-old bread from the bakery outlet, never purchasing anything she couldn't pay for in cash. That money represented decades of sacrifice, of denying herself small luxuries so she could leave something behind for me. The check arrived on a Tuesday and I stared at it for an hour, thinking about how she'd wanted this money to give me security, to give me options, to make my life a little easier than hers had been. David came to me that evening with spreadsheets printed from his computer and concern in his eyes. He sat me down at the kitchen table and explained that the factory was restructuring. His department faced potential cuts. One wrong move, one missed opportunity, could cost him everything we'd worked toward for nearly 2 decades. "There's a supervisor position opening up," he said, pointing to numbers on the spreadsheet that I didn't fully understand. "But the competition is fierce. I need to focus completely on positioning myself, on proving I'm indispensable. If I'm worried about money, about whether we can pay bills if they cut my overtime, I won't be able to give it everything I've got." He suggested we use my inheritance to cover our expenses for a year while he chased the promotion. take the financial pressure off so he could dedicate himself entirely to standing out, to networking, to doing whatever it took to secure our future. It's an investment, he said, and the spreadsheets made it look smart, sensible, like the responsible thing to do. In our future. In the security we've been building toward. Your mother would want you to use this money to protect our family. I signed the papers transferring the money into our joint account. He held me that night, really held me for the first time in months, and promised he'd make it worth it. Promised my mother would be proud of how I used her gift. I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. That's when everything changed, though I didn't see it at the time. I started picking up extra shifts to help with expenses, telling myself it was temporary, just until David's promotion came through and we could breathe again financially. When his coworker Mike needed someone to cover a weekend shift, David asked me to do it instead. Mike's daughter has a soccer tournament, he explained. And you know how it is, we're all like family at the factory. We help each other out. I spent my Saturday restocking medical supplies and filling in for someone I'd never met, coming home exhausted at 9 p.m. but satisfied that I was helping, that I was part of something larger than myself. David's late nights became routine. Production meetings that ran past dinner time. Strategy sessions with management that required him to stay until the building closed. Networking dinners with people who might influence the promotion decision. I stopped asking questions because I didn't want to seem unsupportive or needy, didn't want to add stress to a man who was already carrying so much pressure. Our small town of Millbrook felt even smaller on the nights I ate dinner alone. I'd watch through the kitchen window as neighbors gathered on porches, their laughter drifting through the summer air while I waited for headlights that never seemed to arrive when I expected them. The Johnsons next door had their grandkids visiting every weekend. Carol across the street sat with her husband on their porch swing, and even from my window I could see them talking, connected in a way David and I hadn't been in years. But I told myself we were different. We were building toward something bigger. We were making sacrifices now for a better future later. I told myself this right up until last Saturday, when I found a text message on David's phone that made my entire world tilt sideways. And then I called Mike, the coworker whose shifts I'd been covering, and agreed to meet him 2 towns over where no one from Millbrook would see us. Now I sit in this diner booth, staring at bank statements that prove my husband has been stealing from me for 3 years, and I realize the life I thought we built together was only ever real for one of us. Mike slides another document across the table, and I force myself to look at it even though every page feels like a fresh wound. This one shows a transfer from 3 months ago. $1,200 labeled, emergency dental work. I remember that week. David came home complaining about a toothache, said he'd need a root canal, and I felt guilty for working so much overtime that I hadn't noticed he was in pain. There was no dental work. The money went to the account he shared with someone else. How did you get these? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Mike looks uncomfortable, like he's been dreading this question. David asked me to submit a false expense report about 6 months ago. Wanted me to claim overtime we didn't work and split the reimbursement with him. When I said no, he got angry. Said I was being self-righteous, that everyone did it. He pauses, stirring his coffee. That's when I started paying attention. Really paying attention. I noticed discrepancies in the production logs, equipment repairs that never happened, safety inspections he signed off on without actually doing them. Why didn't you report him? I almost did. Multiple times. Mike meets my eyes and I see genuine regret there. But then I thought about you. About what would happen to you if he got fired, if there was an investigation. You'd lose your house, your savings, everything. I didn't know how much he'd already taken from you, but I knew enough to realize you'd be left with nothing. He gestures at the folder. So I started documenting instead. I thought maybe if I had enough evidence, you could use it to protect yourself when the time came. I never imagined he'd drag it out this long. The diner around us feels surreal. The hiss of the grill, the clatter of dishes, a waitress refilling coffee for the couple 3 booths over. Normal life continuing while mine falls apart page by page. There's one more thing, Mike says quietly. He pulls out a printed email and I recognize the factory letterhead immediately. The supervisor position he's been chasing? It's not a new position. It's mine. I stare at him, not understanding. He's been systematically sabotaging my performance reviews for the past year. Reporting me for violations I never committed, documenting mistakes that never happened, creating a paper trail to make me look incompetent. Mike's jaw tightens. The promotion isn't something he's earning. It's something he's stealing by destroying me first. The folder sits between us, thick with evidence of a man I thought I knew. I realize Mike is watching me carefully, probably wondering if I'm going to break down completely. But the crying I expected doesn't come. Instead, I feel something cold and sharp settling in my chest. A clarity I haven't felt in years. Thank you, I tell him. For protecting me. For caring when you didn't have to. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. If you had, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have defended him. Probably accused you of being jealous. I close the folder, my hands steadier now. I needed to see this myself. I drive home in a fog, the folder on my passenger seat feeling like evidence at a crime scene. The sun is setting over Millbrook, casting long shadows across the familiar streets, and I think about how much can change while everything looks exactly the same. Our house appears normal from the outside. The porch light David installed last summer, the flower beds I planted in the spring, the mailbox we picked out together when we first moved in. But walking through that front door feels different now, like I'm entering a stranger's home. David's truck isn't in the driveway yet. Another late night. I hide Mike's folder in the back of my closet, behind the winter coats we won't need for months. Then I start dinner because that's what I do, what I've always done, even though the routine feels absurd now. I'm standing at the stove when everything Mike told me really hits me, not the financial theft but the calculated cruelty of it. David didn't just steal my mother's money. He stole it while making me feel guilty for questioning him, while convincing me that my concerns about our marriage were just me being needy and unsupportive. The front door opens at 7:30. Earlier than usual. Something smells good, David calls out, and his voice is cheerful, relaxed. He walks into the kitchen and kisses my cheek like this is just another normal evening. How was your day? I want to scream. Want to throw the folder at him and demand answers. Instead, I hear myself say, fine. Yours. Exhausting. The promotion committee is meeting next week. I think this might finally be it. He has no idea that Mike has already told me the truth. No idea that I know the committee is meeting to discuss his termination, not his promotion. I watch him wash his hands at the sink and he seems genuinely excited, genuinely hopeful. Either he's a phenomenal liar, or he's convinced himself his own story is true. We eat dinner together. He talks about factory politics, about who's supporting him and who's trying to undermine him. I nod in the right places, make appropriate sounds of encouragement and feel like I'm watching myself from outside my body. After dinner, while David watches television, I retreat to our bedroom and open his laptop, something I've never done before in 18 years of marriage. The password is our wedding anniversary. That detail feels like a particular kind of mockery. His email is full of mundane work correspondence, but there's a folder labeled personal that makes my stomach drop. Inside are messages to someone named Jennifer Palmer. The emails go back 14 months and they tell the story Mike's bank statements couldn't. Dinners at restaurants we could never afford, weekend trips explained away as work training, plans for a future that doesn't include me. Looking at houses this weekend, one email from 3 months ago reads, found a great townhouse near the lake. 2 bedrooms, updated kitchen. We could move in right after I get the promotion. I screenshot everything. Email it to myself. Delete the sent message. Move through his computer like I'm gathering evidence for a trial, which I suppose I am. There's a document folder labeled Financial Planning. Inside, I find spreadsheets tracking my work schedule, calculating how many extra shifts I could reasonably be asked to cover, estimating how long he could string this out before I became suspicious. My life reduced to numbers and timelines, a resource to be managed and exploited. I close the laptop and sit on the edge of our bed, looking at the room we've shared for nearly 2 decades. The quilt my mother made us as a wedding gift. The dresser we bought at a yard sale and refinished together. The photo on David's nightstand from our 10th anniversary. We couldn't afford a vacation, so we'd driven to the lake and had a picnic, and someone passing by had offered to take our picture. We looked happy in that photo. Maybe we were. Or maybe I was the only one who thought we were. David appears in the doorway. You coming to bed soon? You seem distracted tonight. Just tired, I tell him. Long shift. He accepts this without question, like he accepts all my exhaustion, all my sacrifices as simply the price of the life we're building. He climbs into bed and falls asleep within minutes, his breathing deep and even while I lie beside him staring at the ceiling. I think about confronting him. Imagine how it would go. The denials, the justifications, the way he'd probably turn it around and make me feel guilty for snooping, for not trusting him, for ruining everything with my suspicions. I've watched him manipulate conversations for years without recognizing it as manipulation. Now I see it clearly. So I don't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I lie awake planning. If David has been building an exit strategy for 3 years, then I need to build one too. But mine will be better. Because David has made one critical miscalculation. He's underestimated the quiet woman who packs his lunch and works double shifts and never causes trouble. He thinks I'm weak, intimidating, easy to manage. Tomorrow I start proving him wrong. The clock on the nightstand reads 3:47 a.m. when I finally drift into an uneasy sleep, and my last conscious thought is about the folder hidden in my closet, the evidence I've gathered on his computer, and the phone number for the factory's HR department that I looked up before coming to bed. David wanted to build a future without me. I'm going to make sure he doesn't have a future at all. Monday morning arrives with rain drumming against the bedroom window. I wake before the alarm, David's still asleep beside me, and for a moment I consider staying in bed, calling in sick, hiding from what I know is coming. But I get up, move through the routine, pack his lunch with hands that don't shake anymore. At the grocery store after my shift, I'm reaching for a box of pasta when I hear my name spoken in a hushed tone 2 aisles over. I freeze, straining to hear. Can't believe she doesn't know. Everyone at the factory has seen them together. Maybe she does know and she's just staying for the insurance. Lord knows she couldn't afford that nursing home job without his benefits. I abandon my cart and leave through the side entrance, my face burning. The rain has stopped, but the parking lot is still wet, reflecting the gray sky like a mirror. I sit in my car with the windows fogging up and realize this is what my life has become. Eavesdropping on strangers discussing my marriage while I hide in grocery store parking lots. By Wednesday I start noticing the shift everywhere. Linda from the church choir corners me at the pharmacy, her smile too bright, too sympathetic. She squeezes my hand and asks if everything's all right at home, with an emphasis that makes it clear she knows it isn't. Everything's fine, I tell her, pulling my hand away. Well, you know where to find me if you need to talk. Sometimes marriages go through rough patches, especially when there's job stress involved. She leans closer, lowering her voice. My cousin's husband went through something similar. The pressure just got to him. But they worked it out. I thank her and leave with my prescription, knowing she's already pulling out her phone to text someone about our conversation. My neighbor Carol, who's chatted with me over the fence for 15 years about her tomato plants and her grandson's baseball games, suddenly becomes busy whenever I'm in the yard. She offers quick waves before hurrying inside, and I see her curtains move when I check the mail. The Johnson family next door stops inviting me to their weekend barbecues. Thursday evening at the pharmacy to pick up medication for Mrs. Chin, I round the corner toward the prescription counter and hear 2 women fall silent mid-conversation. They look at me with expressions that mix pity and something else. Curiosity maybe, or the satisfaction of knowing someone else's secrets. After I pass, their voices resume in urgent whispers. The terrible thing about small towns is that secrets spread faster than facts. People have been watching my life unravel before I even knew it was falling apart, constructing narratives about my marriage while I was still living inside my delusions. At Maple Grove on Friday, my supervisor Janet pulls me aside during my lunch break. We sit in her small office that smells like instant coffee and lavender air freshener, and she closes the door. I wanted you to hear this from a friend, she starts, and my stomach drops. There are rumors going around. My sister's husband works maintenance at the factory and he's been hearing things. What things? Janet looks uncomfortable. About David. And a woman from the accounting department. Someone saw them having lunch together multiple times at that Italian place in Greenville. The expensive one. The expensive one. The restaurant David said we couldn't afford for our anniversary last year. It's probably work-related, I hear myself say, even though I know better. The promotion involves coordinating with different departments. Janet's expression tells me she doesn't believe that any more than I do. Honey, I'm not trying to cause problems. But people are talking and I thought you should know what they're saying. I appreciate you telling me. Do you want to take a few days off? You've got plenty of vacation time saved up. No. The word comes out sharper than I intended. I need to work. And I do. The 12-hour shifts are the only thing keeping me from completely falling apart. When I'm at Maple Grove, I'm too busy to think about David having expensive lunches with Jennifer Palmer while I eat vending machine crackers in the break room. Too busy to imagine them in hotel rooms or parked cars or wherever people conduct affairs. Too busy to count how many of our rough patches over the past 3 years were actually him planning his exit. Staying busy means I don't have time to feel how much this hurts. But the looks follow me everywhere now. At the gas station, the post office, the dollar store where I buy cleaning supplies. Millbrook has 15,000 people, and I swear every single one of them knows something about my marriage that I'm still trying to piece together. I start avoiding places where I might run into people. I take the back roads home from work, adding 15 minutes to my drive just to bypass Main Street. Sunday morning, I stay in bed while the church bells ring, missing service for the first time in 20 years. The guilt sits heavy in my chest, but heavier is the thought of walking into that building and feeling everyone's eyes on me, their whispered prayers that are really just gossip dressed up in concern. I do my grocery shopping at 6 a.m. now, when the store is nearly empty except for the overnight stalkers and one exhausted cashier. The isolation feels both protective and suffocating, like I'm wrapping myself in layers of distance to avoid the pain of other people's knowledge. David notices nothing, or pretends not to. He continues his late nights, his distracted conversations about factory politics, his excited speculation about the promotion. Tuesday evening he comes home early for once and finds me staring out the kitchen window. "You've been quiet lately," he says, opening the refrigerator. "Everything okay?" The question is so absurd I almost laugh. Instead, I ask the thing I've been avoiding, "Who's Jennifer Palmer?" He goes very still. "What?" "Jennifer Palmer. From accounting. People are saying you've been having lunch with her." His face shifts through several expressions: surprise, defensiveness, irritation, before settling on wounded innocence. "Are you seriously listening to factory gossip? Janet's been filling your head with rumors. People have seen you together." "Yeah, at work. Because she's helping me prepare my promotion presentation." He sighs, closing the refrigerator without taking anything out. "I can't believe you'd question me like this. After everything I'm doing for us, after all the pressure I'm under, now I have to defend myself against small-town gossip." His defensiveness makes me doubt myself. Maybe I am being paranoid. Maybe small-town gossip has poisoned me against my own husband. Maybe the text message I saw had some innocent explanation I haven't considered. But then I remember the bank statements Mike showed me. The emails I read on David's laptop. The spreadsheet tracking my work schedule like I'm a resource to be managed. "I'm sorry," I hear myself say, hating how easily I back down. People are talking and it's hard." "Then stop listening to them." He softens slightly, comes over and kisses my forehead. "We're almost there. Don't let other people's jealousy mess this up for us." He disappears into the living room and I stand in the kitchen feeling like I've been manipulated but unable to identify exactly how. This is what he does. Turns my legitimate concerns into my personal failings, makes me apologize for asking questions I have every right to ask. Saturday evening at Maple Grove, I'm helping Mrs. Chin with her bedtime routine when she grips my wrist with surprising strength. Her cloudy eyes suddenly focus on my face with an intensity that makes me freeze. "That man of yours," she says in her accented English, each word deliberate. "He doesn't see you anymore." "Mrs. Chin." My husband stopped seeing me too before the end. I became furniture in our house. Something he walked past every day without noticing. Her grip tightens. Don't waste years waiting for him to look back. He won't. Then her eyes cloud over again, the moment of clarity passing as quickly as it came. She releases my hand and asks where her daughter is, confused about what year it is, and I help her into bed with my heart pounding. I drive home in the dark, Mrs. Chen's words echoing in my head. I pull into our driveway and sit in the car, engine off, staring at the house I've cleaned and maintained for 18 years. The porch light is on because I always leave it on for David even though he has his own key. The flower beds I planted are starting to wilt from neglect because I've been too exhausted to water them. Everything looks exactly the same as it did a month ago, but I see it differently now. I've become a ghost in my own life. David doesn't see me because I've made myself invisible. Always accommodating, always understanding, always putting his needs first until there's nothing left of me to notice. The streetlight above our mailbox flickers, casting uneven shadows across the yard. I think about Mrs. Chen's husband, about all the ways people stop seeing each other while still living in the same house. About how I've spent 18 years making myself smaller and quieter and more convenient, believing that sacrifice equaled love. I make a decision sitting there in the dark car. I need to know the full truth no matter how much it destroys me. Not fragments overheard in pharmacies or pieced together from bank statements. The complete picture of what David has been doing and who he's been doing it with. Tomorrow I'm going to find Jennifer Palmer and get answers. I don't sleep that night. Instead, I lie in the dark planning what I'll say, how I'll approach this, what questions will get me the truth I need. By the time dawn breaks through our bedroom curtains, I've rehearsed a dozen different conversations, none of which feel adequate for what I'm about to do. David leaves at 8 for what he calls inventory review at the factory. A Saturday shift he claims is mandatory. I wait until his truck disappears around the corner, then pull out my phone with trembling hands. Mike's number is easy to find. I've seen it in David's phone countless times in messages thanking him for keeping things quiet and running interference. I dial before I can talk myself out of it. He answers on the third ring. Hello. Mike, this is David's wife. We need to talk. The silence on the other end stretches so long I think the call dropped. Then, about what? About the shifts I've been covering for you. About why David keeps thanking you for running interference. About what the hell has been going on. My voice cracks on the last word. Another long pause. When Mike speaks again, his voice is careful, measured. We should meet in person. Somewhere private. There are things you need to know that I can't say over the phone. Where? There's a diner 2 towns over in Greenville. The Bluebird on Route 47. Can you meet me there in an hour? I agree and hang up, my heart pounding. An hour gives me time to shower, change, rehearse more questions I probably won't ask. I spend the drive to Greenville preparing myself for confirmation of the affair, for details about Jennifer Palmer, for hearing that my husband is in love with someone else. I'm not prepared for what Mike actually tells me. The Bluebird Diner is nearly empty when I arrive. Just an older couple in the corner booth and a tired-looking waitress refilling sugar dispensers. Mike is already there, sitting in a booth by the window, and he looks almost as nervous as I feel. Thank you for meeting me, he says as I slide into the seat across from him. The waitress brings coffee without asking. I wrap my hands around the mug for something to hold on to. Mike stirs his coffee for a long moment, like he's choosing his words carefully. I want you to know I never wanted to be involved in any of this. When David and I first started working together, I liked him. Thought he was a good guy, good at his job. He looks up, meeting my eyes. I feel sick about what I'm going to tell you. Just tell me. He opens a folder I hadn't noticed sitting beside him on the vinyl seat. Slides it across the table. I don't know how much you know about your joint finances, but you need to see this. The first page is a bank statement from an account I don't recognize. But my name is on it. Mine and David's joint holders. The transactions listed make my stomach drop. Transfer. $800, equipment repair. Transfer. $1,200, medical expense. Transfer. $950, emergency home repair. Transfer. $1,400, dental work. I flip through page after page. Hundreds of transactions over 3 years, all labeled with plausible household expenses, all transferring money out of our joint account into a separate account I never knew existed. Where did this money come from? Mike asks gently. My mother's inheritance. The words feel thick in my throat. $47,000. David said we needed it to cover expenses while he focused on getting promoted. Mike nods slowly. Look at the balance on the last page. I flip to the end. The current balance shows $3,847.52. That can't be right, I whisper. We only used it for bills. For keeping us afloat while David stole it, Mike finishes quietly. $800 here. $1,200 there. All of it labeled as legitimate expenses that never actually happened. I stare at the numbers until they blur together. The mug of coffee in my hands has gone cold. Mike's voice seems to come from very far away. How did you get these? He looks uncomfortable. About 8 months ago, David asked me to submit a false expense report. Claimed we'd worked overtime on a project that never happened, wanted me to split the reimbursement with him 50-50. Mike shakes his head. When I said no, he got angry. Called me self-righteous, said everyone did it, that I was being stupid for passing up easy money. What did you do? I started paying attention. Really paying attention. He pulls out more documents. Printouts of time cards, expense reports, maintenance logs. David's been claiming overtime he never worked. Charging personal expenses to factory accounts. Dinners, gas, even car repairs. He's been manipulating production records to make his numbers look better. Skipping required safety inspections but signing off that he completed them. Each revelation lands like a physical blow. This isn't just an affair. This is systematic fraud. I found irregularities going back almost 3 years, Mike continues. Right around the time the supervisor position was first announced. He's been building a false record of exceptional performance while making himself look indispensable. Why didn't you report him? Mike's expression turns pained. I almost did. Multiple times I drafted emails to HR, sat in my truck in the parking lot with my finger over the send button. He pauses. But then I thought about you. About what would happen if David got fired if there was a full investigation. You'd lose your house, your savings, everything. And I didn't know how much he'd already taken from you, but I knew enough to realize you'd be left with nothing. The kindness in his voice makes my eyes burn. So instead of reporting him, I started documenting everything. Every falsified report, every fraudulent expense claim, every manipulation. He gestures at the folder. I thought maybe if I gathered enough evidence, you could use it to protect yourself when the truth came out. I never imagined he'd drag it out this long. I look down at the folder, at the careful documentation of my husband's crimes. You did this for me? Someone you barely know? I've seen you at factory events. You're always kind, always helping. You deserve better than this. Mike hesitates, then slides one more document across the table. There's something else you need to know. It's a printed email chain between David and someone in HR. I recognize the factory letterhead immediately. The emails detail performance concerns about Mike. Missed deadlines, safety violations, quality control issues. A paper trail documenting incompetence and unreliability. None of that is true, Mike says quietly. I've never missed a deadline. Never had a safety violation. My performance reviews have been excellent for 12 years. He points to the dates. These complaints started appearing right after I refused to help David with that fake expense report. The realization hits me like ice water. He's been sabotaging you. The supervisor position isn't a new role. It's mine. I've been the acting supervisor for the past year while they finalized the permanent promotion. Mike's jaw tightens. David's been systematically destroying my reputation to justify giving him my job. The promotion he's been chasing isn't something he's earning. It's something he's stealing by making me look incompetent. I sit back against the vinyl booth, feeling like the floor has dropped out from under me. This is so much worse than an affair. Jennifer Palmer, the expensive lunches, the townhouse by the lake. Those are almost footnotes to the larger picture of calculation and cruelty. Why are you telling me all this now? Mike meets my eyes. Because last week, HR scheduled a meeting for next Thursday to finalize the promotion decision. David thinks he's won. He thinks his false reports have worked, that he's successfully discredited me, that the job is his. He pauses. But if someone credible came forward with evidence of his fraud, someone like his wife, someone HR would have no reason to doubt, everything would change. The implication hangs between us. He's not asking me to do anything. But he's placed the weapon in my hands. I need to think, I manage to say. Of course. Mike closes the folder and pushes it toward me. This is yours now. All the documentation, all the evidence. What you do with it is completely your choice. I take the folder with numb fingers. It feels impossibly heavy, like it contains more than just papers. I'm sorry, Mike says as I stand to leave. I'm sorry you're married to someone capable of this. And I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I nod, not trusting myself to speak, and walk out into the parking lot where the morning sun feels too bright, too normal for what I've just learned. The drive home passes in a fog. I keep seeing those bank statements, my mother's inheritance drained away in careful increments. She saved that money through decades of sacrifice, denying herself small comforts so she could leave me something meaningful. And David spent it on building a life without me while convincing me we were building something together. I pull into our driveway and sit in the car, the folder on my passenger seat looking innocuous, just manila paper and documents. But inside is evidence that could destroy David's career, expose his fraud, and any chance he has of getting that promotion. The question is whether I'm capable of using it. David's truck isn't back yet. I carry the folder inside and hide it in the back of my closet behind winter coats we won't need for months. Then I sit on the edge of our bed in the house we paid off together, and realize my marriage ended long ago. I'm just the last one to find out. I sit on the edge of our bed for a long time after hiding Mike's folder in the closet. The house is quiet except for the ticking of the kitchen clock and the hum of the refrigerator, sounds that have been the background of my life for 18 years. Everything looks the same, but I feel like I'm seeing it all for the first time through someone else's eyes. Sunday morning, I pull the folder out and spread the documents across our dining room table. Bank statements, emails, expense reports. The careful documentation of 3 years of systematic betrayal. My hands don't shake anymore. Shock has burned itself out, leaving behind something colder and sharper. I'm looking at a transfer labeled, Emergency Car Repair, $1,400, when I notice something I missed before. The account receiving the money has 2 names on it, David Brennan and Jennifer Palmer. Jennifer Palmer. Not just his coworker. Not just the woman from accounting he was having expensive lunches with. A joint account holder. A partner in whatever life he was building. I open my laptop and type her name into Facebook. Her profile appears immediately. Privacy settings loose enough that I can see everything without sending a friend request. She's about my age, maybe a few years younger. Divorced, according to her relationship status. Her profile picture shows her on a hiking trail somewhere scenic, smiling at the camera with the kind of confident joy I haven't felt in years. I scroll through her photos and each one confirms what I already suspected. A dinner at Giuseppe's, the expensive Italian place in Greenville where David said we couldn't afford to celebrate our anniversary. Posted 6 months ago with a caption about, perfect evening with great company. A weekend trip to Niagara Falls. I remember that weekend. David told me he had mandatory safety training, apologized for missing my birthday dinner. I'd covered 2 extra shifts to make up for the lost income. In Jennifer's photo, she stands in front of the falls wearing a new jacket, her face lit up with happiness. Check-ins at restaurants I've never been to. Wine bars. A concert venue. A bed and breakfast in the Adirondacks. Her apartment. No, her townhouse, judging by the visible second floor in the background of her Christmas photos, looks nothing like our modest 3-bedroom house. Updated kitchen with granite counters. Hardwood floors. Furniture that didn't come from yard sales or the clearance section at discount stores. My mother's inheritance bought all of it. There are no photos of David. Jennifer's smart enough not to post evidence of dating a married man. But the timeline matches perfectly with every late night, every production meeting, every excuse that kept him away from home. I screenshot everything. Add it to the folder that's becoming a comprehensive record of David's double life. Monday morning, I call Janet at Maple Grove before my shift starts. I need to take a sick day, I tell her. Are you okay? You never call in. I'm fine. Just need to handle some personal things. After I hang up, I change out of my scrubs and into jeans and a sweater. Drive to the factory and park in the visitor lot where I have a clear view of the main entrance. Feel ridiculous, like I'm acting out some bad television drama, but I need to see them together with my own eyes. The lunch hour arrives. Workers start streaming out of the building in groups, heading to their cars or the food trucks that park along the street. I watch for David, my heart pounding even though I'm not sure what I'm hoping to see. He appears at 12:15 and Jennifer Palmer is beside him. They don't hold hands. Don't kiss. Nothing I could point to and say definitively, there's proof. But I don't need dramatic gestures. The proof is in how they stand together. David's body angled toward her, animated in a way he hasn't been with me in years. Her laugh carries across the parking lot, light and comfortable. The ease between them speaks of intimacy built over months, maybe longer. They walk to her car and that's when I notice the kayak racks on top. New model sedan, dark blue, probably less than 2 years old. David opens her door for her, a gesture I can't remember him making for me in the past decade. She drives away. David heads to his truck. And I make a decision that surprises me. I follow her. Keeping several cars between us, I trail Jennifer through Millbrook streets and out to the newer development on the east side of town. She pulls into a townhouse complex with a decorative sign reading Riverside Commons. The kind of place with landscaped common areas and a community pool. She parks in front of a unit with flower boxes in the windows and a small patio with nice outdoor furniture. I watch her unlock the door and disappear inside, and then I sit in my car staring at the building. This townhouse costs twice what our mortgage ever did. I know because I looked up the rental prices online while David was in the shower last week. 2 bedrooms, updated everything, access to amenities our neighborhood doesn't have. My mother's money paid for this. For the deposit, the first few months' rent, probably the furniture I can see through the windows. She spent her whole life clipping coupons and reusing aluminum foil so she could leave me something meaningful, and David used it to set up a comfortable life with another woman. I should feel rage. Should want to march up to that door and confront Jennifer, demand to know how long she's been sleeping with my husband, ask if she knows about the stolen inheritance funding her lifestyle. Instead, I feel exhausted down to my bones. Because Jennifer isn't my enemy. He's just another person David lied to. He probably told her our marriage was already over, that we were staying together for financial reasons or out of habit, that he was waiting for the right moment to leave. He probably painted himself as the victim, trapped in a loveless marriage, working himself to death for a wife who didn't appreciate him. And maybe she believed him because that's what people do when someone they care about tells them a story. They believe it. I think about my mother, about the last real conversation we had before the cancer took her ability to speak. She'd held my hand and looked at me with those eyes that saw everything. "You're stronger than you know," she'd said. "Don't forget that." At the time, I thought she was talking about her death, about my ability to cope with losing her. Now I wonder if she saw something I couldn't, that I'd made myself too small, too dependent on David's approval, too willing to sacrifice myself for the idea of us. She left me that inheritance hoping it would give me independence. Freedom to make choices. Security to stand on my own. And I handed it over to the man who was planning his exit, who saw my sacrifice not as love but as opportunity. The cruelest part isn't the affair. It's realizing I facilitated my own abandonment. I drive home and David's truck isn't in the driveway yet. Another late afternoon at the factory. I go inside and make dinner out of habit, chicken and rice, simple and practical. Set the table for 2 even though the gesture feels absurd now. He comes home at 7, later than usual but not suspiciously so. "Something smells good," he says, hanging his jacket by the door. I don't answer. Just serve the food and sit across from him at the table where we've eaten thousands of meals together. "You're quiet tonight," he observes after a few minutes of silence. "I saw you today. With Jennifer Palmer." His fork stops halfway to his mouth. "What?" "At the factory. During lunch. I watched you walk her to her car." He sets down his fork carefully. "Are you following me now? Is this what we've come to? You opened her car door. You don't do that for me anymore. She's a coworker." I was being polite. His voice has that edge of defensiveness I've come to recognize. This is getting ridiculous. First you're listening to gossip, now you're spying on me at work. I followed her home. Nice townhouse. Must cost quite a bit. The color drains from his face and I see the calculation in his eyes. How much do I know? How much can he still deny? What excuse will work best? "I don't know what you think you saw. I know about the account, David. The one with both your names on it. I know where my mother's money went." Silence. Long and terrible. Then he tries a different approach. "Let me explain." "No." I stand up, suddenly unable to sit at this table anymore. "I don't want your explanations. I don't want to hear how this is somehow justified or how I drove you to it or any of the other excuses you've been rehearsing." I walk to the bedroom, pull Mike's folder from the closet and return to the dining room. David hasn't moved, frozen in his chair like he can't quite believe this is happening. I drop the folder on the table in front of him. "What is this?" "Evidence. 3 years of it. Every fraudulent expense report, every falsified time card, every lie you told to HR about Mike's performance. All documented." He opens the folder with shaking hands and I watch his expression change as he flips through pages. Confusion giving way to understanding, understanding giving way to panic. "Where did you get this?" "Mike gave it to me." "The man you've been trying to destroy to steal his job? He's been protecting me. Documenting everything in case I ever needed proof of what you really are." David looks up at me and for the first time I see real fear in his eyes. Not fear of losing me, fear of losing everything else. "You can't show this to anyone. Do you understand what this would do?" "I understand perfectly." This would end my career. We'd lose everything. We've already lost everything. My voice sounds calm, almost detached. You made sure of that 3 years ago when you started stealing from me. I wasn't stealing. That money was for us. It was for Jennifer Palmer. For her townhouse and her vacations and the life you were building while I worked 70-hour weeks thinking we were in this together. He stands, reaching for me, and I step back. Don't. Please. Let me explain. It's not what you think. Tomorrow is Monday, I say, cutting him off. You have work. I have work. We're going to go about our normal routines. But I want you to know something. He waits, looking smaller somehow than he did 5 minutes ago. I haven't decided what to do with this evidence yet. But when I do decide, you won't see it coming. Just like I didn't see any of this coming. I walk to our bedroom and close the door. Lock it for the first time in 18 years of marriage. On the other side, I hear David moving around, the rustle of papers as he looks through the folder, his footsteps pacing, a sound that might be crying or might just be anger. I lie on the bed fully clothed, staring at the ceiling and wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow arrives with cold morning light filtering through the bedroom curtains. I didn't sleep, just lay there listening to David move around the house, heard him try the bedroom door twice before giving up, heard the couch springs creak when he finally settled there for the night. When my alarm goes off at 5:30, I unlock the door and find him asleep in the living room, Mike's folder clutched against his chest like he fell asleep reading through the evidence. He looks smaller somehow, diminished in a way that should make me feel victorious but only makes me feel tired. I shower, dress in my scrubs, and leave for work without waking him. At Maple Grove, I move through my morning routine on autopilot. Mrs. Chin needs help with breakfast. Mr. Patterson's medication schedule has changed. Someone's family is coming to visit and wants the room to look nice. Normal tasks that feel surreal when my entire life is collapsing. During my break, I sit in my car in the parking lot and pull out my phone. Mike's suggestion from the diner keeps echoing in my head. If someone credible came forward with evidence. I dial the factory's main number before I can talk myself out of it. Millbrook Manufacturing, how may I direct your call? Human Resources, please. The line clicks. Rings twice. HR, this is Susan speaking. I need to speak to someone about. I pause, unsure how to phrase this. About reporting employee misconduct. One moment, please. The hold music is unexpectedly cheerful. I watch an elderly couple walk slowly across the nursing home parking lot, the man holding his wife's arm, and wonder if David and I will ever be that couple or if we've already passed the point where we could grow old together. This is Catherine Walsh, HR Director. How can I help you? I take a breath. My name is Sarah Brennan. My husband David works in production. I have information about financial irregularities and falsified reports that I think you need to know about. The pause on the other end is brief but significant. When Catherine speaks again, her voice has shifted, still professional but with an undercurrent of something else. Interest maybe. Or relief. Mrs. Brennan, she says, using my formal name in a way that makes this suddenly feel very official. Would you be able to come in this afternoon? Say 2 p.m. I finish my shift at 1. I could be there by 2. Perfect. Ask for me at the main reception desk. Another pause. Mrs. Brennan, I want you to know, we've been hoping someone would come forward. The phrasing strikes me as odd. They've been hoping? What does that mean? I'll bring documentation, I tell her. That would be very helpful. I'll see you this afternoon. I hang up and sit in my car, hands shaking now that the call is done. I've set something in motion that I can't stop. Whatever happens next, there's no going back to the life I had yesterday. The rest of my shift passes in a fog. I help residents with lunch, change bedding, respond to call buttons, but my mind is elsewhere. At 12:30, while I'm helping Mrs. Chin with her afternoon routine, she grips my wrist with surprising strength. Be brave, she whispers, her eyes clearer than I've seen them in weeks. What? But the moment of lucidity passes. She looks at me with confusion, asking if it's time for dinner, and I wonder if she actually spoke or if I imagined it. Either way, I take it as a sign. At 1:45, I walk into Millbrook Manufacturing's main office building for the first time in 3 years. The last time was for the Christmas party, back when I still believed David and I were building a future together. The receptionist directs me to the second floor. Catherine Walsh's office is smaller than I expected. No corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows, Just a practical space filled with employee files, framed safety certifications, and a desk cluttered with the evidence of actual work being done. A family photo sits beside her computer monitor. Catherine with a husband and 2 teenage daughters, all of them smiling at the camera. It reminds me that real people work in these buildings that have always felt distant and impersonal to me. Mrs. Brennan, thank you for coming. Catherine stands to shake my hand, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Coffee? No thank you. She settles back into her chair and I notice a file folder already open on her desk. My husband's name is visible on the tab. Before we begin, I need to explain something that might surprise you. Catherine folds her hands on top of the file. The factory has been investigating your husband for approximately 4 months. The words don't make sense at first. Investigating. We received an anonymous tip back in July about irregularities in production reports. Safety inspections that appeared to be signed off without actually being completed. Maintenance logs that didn't match up with actual work orders. He pulls out a document, slides it toward me. We've been building a case, but we lacked a credible witness willing to come forward officially. I stare at the document. A production report with David's signature, dated 3 months ago. Why didn't you have witnesses? There must be dozens of people who work with him. Your husband cultivated a very specific reputation. The dedicated family man. The reliable employee whose wife volunteers on the Worker Ethics Committee. Catherine's expression is sympathetic. People were reluctant to accuse someone who appeared to have such strong integrity, especially without concrete proof. The irony makes me want to laugh. David used my volunteer work, as a shield to hide behind while he committed fraud. I pull Mike's folder from my bag. I have proof. Catherine takes the folder and I watch her expression change as she flips through the pages. Bank statements. Expense reports. The careful documentation Mike compiled over 8 months. Where did you get this? Mike Torres. The employee my husband has been trying to discredit. I hesitate, then add, David was trying to take Mike's supervisor position by destroying his reputation. We suspected as much. Catherine looks up from the folder. Mike Torres has an exemplary record going back 12 years. When complaints about his performance suddenly started appearing, it raised red flags. She pulls another chair over and a man in his 50s enters the office. Someone I haven't met. This is Robert Chin, our legal counsel. He'll need to hear your statement as well. For the next hour I walk them through everything. The inheritance from my mother. David's request to use it for expenses while he chased the promotion. The gradual discovery that the money had been stolen. Mike's documentation of falsified reports and fraudulent expense claims. They ask careful questions. When did I first notice the missing money? Did David discuss his work in detail at home? Was I aware of any specific incidents of fraud? And then the question that makes my stomach drop. Did you know about any of these activities? I see the calculation in their eyes. Are you a victim or an accomplice? I pull out my own bank records, printed this morning from my personal account. These are my paychecks from Maple Grove Nursing Home. You can see they barely covered our basic bills. I worked overtime constantly thinking we were struggling financially because of the factory restructuring. I point to my savings account statement. This account had $8,000 3 years ago. David told me we needed it for emergency expenses. It's empty now. Robert examines the statements carefully. Catherine watches me with an expression that's shifted from professional distance to something closer to concern. Mrs. Brennan, Robert says slowly, you understand that because your husband used his factory position to access and manipulate expense accounts, and because your personal inheritance was involved, this situation extends beyond employment misconduct. What do you mean? We're looking at potential criminal fraud. Embezzlement of company funds. Falsification of safety records that could have endangered other employees. He pauses. The authorities may want to investigate. The room feels smaller suddenly. I thought this would end David's career. I didn't consider it might end with criminal charges. We're preparing to terminate your husband's employment, Catherine says quietly. But we wanted your cooperation first. Both as a member of our Ethics Oversight Committee and as the person most directly harmed by his actions. I'd forgotten about the Ethics Committee. 3 years ago, when the factory implemented new oversight protocols after some corporate scandal I barely paid attention to, They asked for community volunteers. I signed up because it seemed like good citizenship, a way to stay connected to David's work world. I attended quarterly meetings where someone from corporate walked us through policy updates and compliance measures. I signed documents I barely understood, reviewed reports that seemed meaningless to me. It felt like busy work, like I was being involved without actually doing anything important. I never realized those signatures meant anything, I admit. They carry significant legal weight, Robert explains. You're an authorized oversight representative. Your testimony and documentation will be taken seriously by corporate investigators and potentially by law enforcement. The irony is almost too much. David wanted me on that committee because it made him look good, the devoted husband whose wife volunteered to support factory transparency. He never imagined that same position would give me the authority to validate his destruction. Catherine slides a document across the desk. This is an official statement. It outlines what you've told us today and authorizes the factory to use the evidence you've provided in termination proceedings. I look at the paper. Dense paragraphs of legal language that boil down to one simple thing. My signature will end David's career. My hand hovers over the pen Catherine offers. I think about my mother saving for decades so she could leave me something meaningful. About the nursing home residents I care for, who depend on me while their own families forget them. About Mike, who protected me when he could have just reported David and walked away. About Jennifer Palmer, who probably has no idea the townhouse she lives in was funded by stolen money. About 18 years of marriage to a man who saw my love as opportunity and my sacrifice as weakness. I take the pen and sign my name. Clear. Deliberate. Final. What happens now? I ask. We'll schedule a meeting with your husband for Thursday morning, Catherine says. He'll be presented with the evidence and given the opportunity to respond before termination is finalized. Thursday. 2 days away. I stand to leave and Catherine walks me to the door. Mrs. Brennan, she says quietly, for what it's worth, you're doing the right thing. I drive home in the late afternoon sunlight and I can't tell if I feel lighter or heavier for what I've just done. I drive home from the factory on Tuesday afternoon with the weight of what I've done settling into my bones. The signed statement sits in Catherine Walsh's office now, officially recorded, irreversible. I've set machinery in motion that will crush my husband, and there's no way to stop it even if I wanted to. David's truck is in the driveway when I arrive. He's home early, sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open, looking more animated than I've seen him in months. There you are, he says when I walk in. I was wondering where you went. Work. The lie comes easily now. Listen, I think Thursday might be it. HR wants to meet with me at 10. They called it routine, but the timing lines up perfectly with the promotion committee meeting. He grins and the expression looks foreign on his face. I think this is finally happening. I set my purse down carefully, afraid my hands will shake and give me away. He has no idea what Thursday's meeting actually is. No idea that in 2 days his entire world will collapse. That's good, I manage to say. He doesn't notice the hollowness in my voice. Doesn't see me at all, really, just continues talking about his plans, about how the supervisor position will change everything, about the future he's been working toward. The future that doesn't include me. I excuse myself and go to the bedroom where I sit on the edge of the bed and stare at nothing. Wednesday passes in a blur. I work my shift at Maple Grove, come home to a house that feels like a stage set, exchange meaningless words with a husband who's become a stranger. Thursday morning arrives with gray skies threatening rain. My phone rings at 8:30. Catherine Walsh. Mrs. Brennan, your husband has been summoned for a meeting at 10 o'clock. We're presenting it as a routine discussion so he doesn't have time to prepare a defense or destroy evidence. She pauses. I wanted to ask if you'd like to be notified when it's done. I surprise myself with my answer. I want to be there. In the meeting? No. But in the building. Close enough to know when it happens. There's a moment of silence on her end. That's unusual, but I understand. Come to my assistant's office on the 2nd floor. You can wait there. I call Janet at Maple Grove and use another sick day. I'm running out of them, but it doesn't matter. Nothing about my normal routine matters anymore. At 9:45, I park in the factory visitor lot and walk into the administrative building. Catherine's assistant, a young woman named Maria, offers me coffee and a chair in the small outer office. The coffee tastes like it's been sitting on the burner too long, but I drink it anyway, needing something to do with my hands. The clock on the wall ticks toward 10. I watch the second hand make its slow circuit, each tick feeling like a hammer blow. At exactly 10 o'clock I hear footsteps in the hallway. David's voice, cheerful and confident. "Morning, Maria. They ready for me?" "Go right in, Mr. Brennan." The door to Catherine's office closes. Through the thin walls I hear muffled voices. David's tone is relaxed, almost jovial. He thinks this is his moment, the meeting where everything he's worked for finally pays off. I hear him say something about, excited to discuss the next steps, and ready to take on more responsibility. Then Catherine's voice cuts through, formal and unyielding. The pleasant small talk ends abruptly. The quality of David's responses changes. The confidence drains away. I hear confusion first. "I'm sorry, what?" Then defensive arguments, his voice rising slightly. "There must be some mistake. I can explain." Catherine's voice remains calm, methodical. I catch phrases through the wall. Financial irregularities, and falsified safety documentation, and ethics committee verification. There's a long silence. Then David's voice, sharp with something between anger and panic. "What ethics committee verification? Who the hell verified anything?" Catherine's response is too quiet for me to hear clearly, but I imagine her sliding the termination letter across the desk. Imagine David's eyes traveling down the page, past the corporate language and legal justifications, landing on the signature at the bottom. My signature. The silence stretches out. I grip my coffee cup hard enough that my knuckles turn white. Then David's voice, completely different now. "Sarah? My wife verified this." I can't hear Catherine's response, but I know what she's telling him. That yes, his wife provided the evidence. That yes, his wife signed the statement that makes all of this official. That yes, the woman he's been lying to for 3 years had the power to end his career and chose to use it. More silence. Then the sound of a chair scraping back. The door opens and David emerges into the outer office. His face has gone ashen, all color drained away. He's gripping the termination letter in both hands like it might disappear if he doesn't hold on tight enough. He doesn't see me at first. His eyes are fixed on the paper, scanning it over and over as if the words might rearrange themselves into something different. Then he looks up and our eyes meet across the small office. I see complete disbelief on his face. Not anger yet, that will come later. Not even hurt. Just shocked incomprehension that I was capable of this. The woman who packed his lunch every morning for 18 years. Who covered shifts for his coworkers without question. Who gave him her mother's inheritance because he said they needed it. Who made herself smaller and quieter and more convenient for nearly 2 decades. That woman just orchestrated his professional destruction. His mouth opens. He takes a step toward me. Robert Chin, the legal counsel, appears in Catherine's doorway. "Mr. Brennan, I need to inform you that you're being escorted from the building immediately. Security will supervise while you collect your personal items from your locker." "Sarah," David's voice cracks. "Additionally," Robert continues, his tone still professionally neutral, "the local police may want to speak with you regarding the financial irregularities uncovered during this investigation. You should consider obtaining legal representation." David's face shifts from disbelief to panic. "Police? This is about work. This doesn't involve embezzlement of personal funds, falsification of safety records, fraud involving company expense accounts. These extend beyond employment matters, Mr. Brennan." The door behind me opens and Mike appears. I didn't know he was here, but of course he is. Catherine would have called him as a witness. "Come on," Mike says quietly, touching my elbow. "Let's get you out of here." He guides me toward the side exit while security personnel appear to escort David out through the main entrance. I catch one last glimpse of my husband standing in the hallway, the termination letter hanging limply from his hand, looking lost in a building where he's worked for 20 years. Mike walks me to my car. "You okay?" "I don't know what I am." "That took guts. What you did in there." I lean against my car, suddenly exhausted. Did it? Or did I just finally stop being a coward? Those aren't mutually exclusive. Mike checks his watch. "I have to get back. The promotion committee is meeting now." "The promotion committee?" "Yeah. They're finalizing the supervisor position today." He offers a small, sad smile. "I'll let you know how it goes." He heads back inside and I sit in my car unable to drive yet. Through the windshield I watch the main entrance. At 10:47, David emerges carrying a cardboard box. His personal items from his locker, I assume. Photos maybe. The coffee mug I bought him 5 Christmases ago. The small things you accumulate over 20 years in one place. He stands by his truck for a long moment looking back at the factory building. I wonder what he's thinking. If he's replaying the meeting in his head trying to figure out where his plan went wrong. If he's thinking about me at all or if he's already calculating his next move. My phone buzzes. A text from Catherine. The promotion committee met this morning. Mike Torres has been officially selected as supervisor. Effective immediately. I read the message twice, letting it sink in. David's entire plan, 3 years of sabotage, embezzlement, manipulation, lies, had been for nothing. The job was never going to be his. The promotion committee had already decided on Mike before any of this came to light. All that destruction. All that cruelty. All that calculated dismantling of other people's lives. For a position he was never going to get. I watch David finally climb into his truck. He sits there for another minute, not starting the engine, just staring at the steering wheel. I could go to him. Could try to talk, to explain, to offer some kind of closure or confrontation or whatever this moment is supposed to be. Instead, I start my car and drive away. In my rearview mirror, I see him still sitting in that parking lot, surrounded by the ruins of the future he thought he'd built. For the first time in 18 years, I don't worry about what he needs or how he feels or whether I should go back and try to fix things. I just drive. The rain starts as I merge onto the highway and I turn the wipers on, watching them sweep across the windshield in steady rhythm. Back and forth. Back and forth. Clearing away what's in front of me so I can see where I'm going. I don't know where I'm going yet. But I know I'm not going back. I drive with no destination in mind, the windshield wipers keeping time with my thoughts. The rain comes harder now and I pull into a rest stop off the highway just to sit and breathe. My phone rings. David's number. I decline the call. It rings again. And again. On the 4th attempt, I turn the phone off completely and sit in the silence of my car, listening to rain drum against the roof. I don't go home that night. Can't face the house where David will eventually return, can't navigate the conversation we'll have to have. Instead, I check into a cheap motel on the outskirts of town and sleep for 12 hours straight, the first real sleep I've had in weeks. When I wake Friday morning, I call a lawyer. The separation happens faster than I expected. David contests nothing. He can't, not with the factory threatening to press criminal charges if he doesn't cooperate fully. Our lawyer handles everything through email and phone calls, keeping us apart, which suits me fine. The house goes on the market. What's left of our joint savings gets divided equally, which amounts to $4,000 each after paying the lawyer. I take my share and start looking for a place to live. 3 weeks after David's termination, I sign a lease on a studio apartment above Miller's hardware store on the edge of Millbrooks downtown. It's small, one room that serves as bedroom and living space, a kitchenette barely big enough to turn around in, a bathroom with ancient tile and a shower that takes 5 minutes to produce hot water. But it's mine. The landlord, Mr. Miller himself, who must be pushing 70, shows me around apologetically. I know it ain't much. Haven't had a tenant up here in 2 years. But I cleaned it up, fresh paint, and the rent's fair. The apartment smells like fresh paint and wood shavings from the store below. The window overlooks Main Street where I can watch people going about their ordinary lives. Buying coffee at the diner across the street, walking dogs, pushing strollers. I'll take it, I tell him. Moving day is simple because I take almost nothing from the house. The furniture my mother gave me years ago. A small table, 2 chairs, her old dresser. My clothes. Some kitchen basics. I leave behind 18 years of accumulated life like I'm shedding a skin that never fit right. The yard sale signs go up the following weekend. I don't attend. Don't want to watch strangers pick through the remains of my marriage, haggling over the couch where David and I used to watch movies or the dishes we got as wedding presents. My first night in the apartment, I sleep on an air mattress I bought at the discount store. The streetlight outside casts shadows across the ceiling, and the sounds of Millbrook filter up through the old building. Car doors closing, someone laughing, the distant rumble of a freight train passing through town. When I wake up, I don't feel the heavy dread that characterized the last year of my marriage. I feel light. Unmoored but light. The gossip around Millbrook shifts as the facts emerge. David's termination becomes public knowledge. Small towns don't keep employment secrets. The investigation, the evidence, the revelation that I was the one who provided testimony. Opinions split predictably. Some people treat me like a hero who exposed corruption. I overhear conversations at the grocery store about that brave woman who stood up to her crooked husband. Others whisper that I betrayed my marriage vows, destroyed a man's livelihood over a simple affair, that I should have tried counseling or given him another chance. I stop caring what they think. Linda from church choir shows up at my apartment one evening with a covered dish and an apology. I knew about Jennifer Palmer, she admits, standing in my doorway looking genuinely ashamed. I saw them together at that restaurant in Greenville. I should have told you, but I didn't know how, and I convinced myself it wasn't my business. It's okay, I tell her, and I mean it. I don't think I would have believed you if you had. Carol from next door, from my old house, brings me a casserole and a tomato plant for my fire escape. For your new place, she says. I wish I'd had your courage when my own husband cheated back in '98. I stayed for another 10 years and they were the worst years of my life. I realize small-town gossip cuts both ways. Yes, everyone knows my business. But that also means other women see me as proof that you can walk away and survive. I become an accidental example, which feels uncomfortable but somehow purposeful. One evening in early autumn, Mike stops by with paperwork. The factory has a restitution program, he explains, sitting on my small balcony that barely fits 2 folding chairs. For employees who've been victims of workplace fraud. It might not recover everything David took, but it could get you some of your inheritance back. How much? Hard to say. Maybe 10-15,000 if the investigation confirms all the irregularities we documented. He hands me the forms. Don't expect miracles, but it's something. We sit drinking iced tea in the cooling evening air, and Mike apologizes again, for not telling me sooner, for letting me cover those shifts while David used me, for all the ways he prioritized protecting his own position over protecting me. If you'd told me a year ago, I wouldn't have believed you, I say, watching the traffic light at the corner change from green to yellow to red. I would have defended David. Probably accused you of being jealous about the promotion. Maybe. I needed to discover it myself. Needed to be angry enough to act. Needed to reach the point where saving my marriage mattered less than saving myself. Mike nods slowly. For what it's worth, you saved more than just yourself. The safety violations David was covering up could have gotten someone hurt. And he wasn't the only one cooking the books. Your testimony gave 3 other people the courage to come forward about irregularities in their departments. Before he leaves, Mike mentions that the supervisor position is demanding but rewarding, that he's still adjusting to the responsibility, that he's grateful I gave him the chance to do the job honestly. After he's gone, I sit on the balcony as the sun sets over Millbrook, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and I realize something important. Some revenge isn't about destruction. It's about making sure the right person wins. 6 months pass. I settle into rhythms that feel nothing like my old life. Work at Maple Grove, where Mrs. Chin tells me I look different. Lighter somehow, even though I've probably aged 5 years in the past half year. Quiet evenings in my small apartment. Weekend mornings at the farmer's market. A Tuesday night book club I joined on impulse. David tried to contact me once, through his lawyer, asking if we could talk about reconciliation. I didn't respond because there's nothing left to say. He chose his path, I chose mine. The restitution program comes through. $12,000 recovered from the factory's investigation into David's fraudulent expense claims. It's not the full inheritance, but it's enough to give me breathing room, enough to stop working every available overtime shift. One Saturday afternoon, I'm folding laundry from the laundromat down the street when I catch my reflection in the window. A 52-year-old woman in worn jeans and a nursing home t-shirt, gray roots showing through because I haven't bothered with hair dye in months. No makeup. No jewelry except my mother's simple silver bracelet. No attempt to be anything other than exactly who I am. I look tired. But I also look real, like I've finally stopped performing for an invisible audience. The studio apartment isn't where I imagined I'd be at this stage of life. I thought I'd grow old in that house with the paid-off mortgage. Thought security meant staying married, maintaining the status quo, making the best of whatever I had. Thought my mother's inheritance was supposed to protect me from uncertainty. But standing here in this small space that's entirely mine, No one else's mess to clean, no one else's needs to anticipate, no one else's lies to navigate. I understand something I couldn't have known before. Freedom doesn't always feel like triumph. Sometimes it feels like falling. Like losing everything you built. Like starting over with almost nothing but your own breath and your own choices. And sometimes that fall is exactly what saves you. I hang up my scrubs for tomorrow's shift. Make tea in the chipped mug I bought at a yard sale for 50 cents. Sit by the window and watch Millbrook's lights flicker on as evening settles in. The street lights, the houses, the stores closing up for the night. I don't know what comes next. Don't have a 5-year plan or a clear vision of my future. Don't even know if I'll stay in Millbrook or eventually move somewhere no one knows my story. But for the first time in years I'm curious to find out. That curiosity, small and fragile as it is, barely more than a flicker, feels like the beginning of something I'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. I sip my tea and watch the world outside my window and I realize I'm not waiting anymore. Not waiting for David to come home. Not waiting for a promotion that will fix everything. Not waiting for permission to want something different. I'm just living. And that, it turns out, is enough. If this story of betrayal and redemption had you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Sarah's signature appeared on David's termination letter. The ultimate power move. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more powerful stories like this. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.